Alrighty, well, welcome back to Seasons of the Goddess podcast. I am so excited to be back with North Star and Miriam today because we've been on a bit of a hiatus, a bit of a soul search, really wow, we're words. You tell me we're channeling and tuning in before. My voice is all over the place. We were recalibrating where we wanted our business to go and our soul directions, really tuning into what that looks like for us. So we're really excited to be back. As you know, my name is Sarah. I am an energetics practitioner, and my journey with the Goddess Grail and Seasons of the Goddess is to really integrate nervous system regulation to lay the foundation for us to really integrate the work we do within the Goddess Grail. And Miriam, if you want to just say a little bit about yourself, really reintroduce yourself to our listeners for this new season, that'd be lovely.
Yes, thank you so much to each of you for being here. I am Miriam Katz. I work as a shamanic healer, and I love researching mystical origins of the world and practices and integrating that kind of scholarly, academic, magical content into my work and making things really come alive, connecting the dots between what the ancients said and what our bodies, our energy bodies, are doing. And I'll pass it over to North Star.
Thank you, sister. I'm North Star. I serve as a soul guide and a priestess, and my my devotion is really in the daily devotions of the relational field that I feel we are all part of, and so much of our work is weaving together that individual self with the divine that is within and all around us. And so being in that communion and communication with the all that is through the more than human ones and the unseen realms and Goddess herself coming into that reciprocity and being a channel for that divine will to express through us in our daily affairs. I'm really, my current growth edge is in blurring that line between what is our spiritual work and kind of what is the mundane, to really living this path where every being that we encounter is a mirror of that divine consciousness. And as we reweave that interconnectedness that we have with everything that we encounter is really, I feel, where the magic unfolds. And so I'm so excited to be back in this conversation with my beloved sisters and our beloved listeners, and really feeling as this is Seasons of the Goddess, how important it is to align with that secular spiral nature of the divine feminine that is always changing and that needs to go through these periods of hibernation and recalibration and allowing things to die away so that the new may emerge. And we're going to share a little today about what that's been like for us, because it's been pretty intense these last few months, and I'm sure for all of you too. But I'm really feeling that turn now towards the spring and towards the regrowth and the coming back out from our crone caves. And so I'm just really thrilled to be attuning to that energy and getting back in our flow of being in communion and conversation with you all.
Yeah. Thank you. I know North Star, you mentioned how we've kind of been in our caves and recalibrating for this season, just as the name of the podcast, Seasons of the Goddess. And for us individually, that has both mirrored each other's experiences, but also been quite individual. And when we really think about the season we were in as a collective and as um, the group of us together, as well as individually, we really recognized when we were speaking earlier about how profound the kind of tidal wave, I want to say, definitely wasn't gentle at the beginning for most of us, but this tidal wave of transition and transmutation has been transmutation. I don't
Mhm.
know. We're gonna have no words today, guys. We're just gonna be authentic and real. But we're just noticing how that has played into the astrology and the year of the snake, that shedding that was happening, releasing what's no longer serving us, letting go of those expectations in some cases of what we had for each other as well as ourselves, and letting go of those things that we might have been holding on to bloody knuckled, right? Things that we are just trying to make work and pushing through because we had this idea that we had to do it this way. And what we found in our work is there's so much beauty in releasing those those pieces, those aspects, those expectations that we really drove through storms with and trying to make it work, trying to make things really mesh. And in the beauty of that storm, we found that when we let go, the blossoming that happened, the abundance that really filtered through was beautiful. And I wanted to kind of start there today. I think as we are coming out of our shells, our hiatus, our hibernation period, to really talk about how that experience was for each of us, but also how that has shaped our business because we do run a business and our business is serving and tapping into the goddess and her teachings. And I think the beauty in the three of us being together, these pillars of a triangle, we were really able to flesh out almost like a patriarchal way of doing our business and really lean into the matriarchy even more than we were already, and creating this foundation of saying the next hardest thing and really honoring our sensations within our body and our nervous system in a way that allows us to serve the goddess and serve our listeners and our participants even more. So is there anyone who wants to pop in? Is there anyone that is lighting up with something they want to share in this moment? I
I'm
see.
so lit up. Um, 'Cause I feel like, yeah, while it's been hard, it's also been such a teaching for all of us to really honor our initial longing that brought us to this collaboration and to the Goddess Grail. And for me, it this kind of recalibration involved a deep clarifying of what the Grail is and how to be in right relationship with the goddess. And so for us, the Grail is really this beautiful symbol of our own energy body, of the vessel that each of us is. And the Grail kind of opens, it's a our toric field, and so it opens both upward to the celestial, to the stars, and so shaped by the astrology and that macrocosmic cycles that are moving through and informing us. And then equally opens downward into Mama Gaia, into the earth, into the terrestrial sphere. And what's that kind of beautiful mirroring of above and below for me as it relates to the goddess is she is cyclical, she is flowing, she is constantly changing. And a need to, in order to open up our own vessel to be able to hold those energies, needs that vessel to be open and to let that energy flow through, not to try and hold it or own it or fix it in a particular way. And for me, that really is kind of the entrenched patriarchal way of doing things, that we want it to be solid and stable and the same. And, you know, I think the divine masculine is a necessary energy, and it is that constant to some extent. But the divine feminine that we've been so estranged from is she who flows, she who changes, she who shifts, she who can hold the entirety of the cycles. And so it feels really beautiful that we've been kind of forced, and there were some bloody knuckles and some resistance to wanting things to be a certain way. And then realizing that our role as priestesses, which we understand as channels ultimately, as the one who, it's very similar to that shamanic idea of the hollow bone, that we get our little self, our ego, out of the way or in service to that soul energy that moves through us. And so to really be in service to that, in devotion to that, requires a constant surrender and trust to what is true now, what is needed now. And so I feel like over this winter, we've the greatest blessing of this business, and even to call it a business feels a little cringy to me. And yet,
Yeah. Yeah.
we're all also, I think, in these times of being a bridge from the old world, the old models, the old ways. There's a reality of needing to still have one foot in that to survive. And we are, in a late stage capitalist hellscape where we all have to engage to a degree in that old system. And yet, how can we be constantly expanding the boundaries of that as we reach towards the world yet to come and these other ways of being in relationship and reciprocity? And so, that for me has always been a priority. I think that drew us together is that another aspect of the divine feminine is her ability to be in collaboration. And if the patriarchal way, not only is it linear, but it's also hierarchical and it's so focused on the individual. And the feminine is so focused on the whole, is the nurturer, is the caretaker, and that has lots to unpack there too, and there can be an unhealthy expression of that. But we are hardwired to be in relationship, to care for the village, to care for our sisters, to care for the young ones. And so as we model this business, or with air quotes in it, the communion between us and the collaboration that allows multiple truths and multiple vantage points, and also then I think mirrors out in every level of what we're trying to create, of the sisters who come and join our circles are equally part of that, contributing their own wisdom, their own perspective. And so to be able to have enough structure that it allows that free flow of cross pollination between each of us and our own medicine and every sister that joins us, while also having enough clarity that there's a scaffolding of the a system that can support what we're trying to offer. Feels like it's been trying and testing, and also like we've all evolved in our own evolution so much. And I'll leave it there, but I'm especially excited for this chapter to lean more into this podcast, because I feel like as we break down that model, that hierarchical model, the teacher no longer is the one that has all the answers and knows everything because there's one answer and this is the way, and hands that fully formed and nicely packaged to a student who's some kind of blank tablet just ready to receive. That I think what we can really offer each other as guides, as teachers and students, as priestesses, is to be really raw and real and vulnerable in our own journey, and then share that, because there is that universal interconnectivity. And so my hope is that as we stumble our way through our own growth and evolution and learning, that we can really be real about that process, and hopefully that is a teaching and something valuable for all of us as we figure out what doesn't work and keep trying out what does.
Yeah. I love that you brought up that hierarchical kind of format where, you have the person who knows it all and you give the information nicely packaged to the blank canvas, so to speak, and how important it is for us to kind of realize that we are all on this journey of learning together. We are all on this journey of self-discovery together. No one is greater than or better than each other. We see each other and sit with each other as sisters, as priestesses, honoring ourselves and that divine feminine energy that moves through us, and how important it is and has been within our work to really receive the feedback from those in our program and really honor what it is they're longing for. What is it you are searching for? How can we serve you? How can we take those niches that we have spent hours and years and however long on discovering and unweaving to really help provide the information that might fuel or inspire you in some way or capacity so that you can take that next step beside us on this path forward and really I think I can speak for all of us. It's really about building community, building that sisterhood rather than sitting in that classroom. And I think that for us is something that really differentiates our teaching is we want to share our knowledge and our wisdom from our heart space, from that womb space, and really bring us forward together as a collective rather than putting together this pretty package and saying, do this, follow this, don't ask questions. It's like, please ask questions. That's a great question. Let's look into this. Let's discover together and learn. Um, and that's not to say we've put in our work, we've put in our niches. We all have different pillars. That's the beauty of the three of us working together. We all have our different niches and pillars that we bring forward to really weave in the workings and the teachings into this beautiful format and beautiful um, I want to say system for a lack of better words because we're not using system as like the system we've known, but this new system that we are developing to really move forward in this new age, this new phase of the world and the collective energies and the collective awareness. So I'm loving how we've moved forward and how we've let go of some teachings that were really programmed and embedded into us that we were really recognizing and we continue to shuffle and move through with grace and sometimes a little grit as we let go of things. And that's really for us was pulling things, back to simple. Like let's make things simple and even more accessible. So I'm excited.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
want to name some of the lessons that we've had as we've been pivoting our engagement model and just to be, for those who are just joining us now, what are we talking about? We just did our third platform migration. So we've been working on this, how do we hold this community and also provide teachings, provide practices that can be really soul affirming. And we had this vision of we're going to develop this thriving online community that's off of the standard platforms where there are advertisements and other agendas at play. And we really wanted it to work and we worked really hard to make it work. But in the end, it wasn't working for us. And when we finally found the courage to say, we tried it, we went all in, and it's not what we wanted it to be, we actually got feedback from the community of like, this wasn't good for us either. Because, it felt really awkward to put ourselves out there and try to, post from our heart in this, forum that just doesn't where we're not interacting face to face. It just, we tried it and it didn't work. So as we think about the kind of rules of the old ways of operating that have been ingrained into us as best practices and start to really question those in our reality and how much are they guiding the kinds of decisions that we make, whether it's as a business owner, as an individual, as a community member. These are important things to notice because they are the programming that's standing in the way of our own sovereignty. And so one that we had to find within ourselves was this idea of needing to stay the course, needing to just stay with what you've committed to. And on the one hand, there can be some great beauty in committing to a practice or a platform, but when it's not working for us and when it's not working for you, then the obvious answer, and it may not have felt so obvious in the moment, is to release it and to move on to that next stage. And we learn this kind of lesson through shamanism, where the emphasis on initiation and shamanic rites of passage or shamanic death is really prevalent. It's really important. And it's something we've forgotten in this, kind of Western or contemporary civilized world. We forget about death. We fear death. And so we put the idea of ending things or reinventing ourselves as in that death scary category. And that's why so many of us stick with programs and jobs and relationships that are tired, that are draining us. And so this idea of saying yes to a good death, of a releasing of an old pattern or system, is really essential because it enables our soul to emerge from, the cage of that which was constraining us. So I really want to bring that theme of a good death, a shamanic death, and initiation into, our conscious discussions, because this is something that each of us needs to find the courage to do when a path is really not aligned with our soul. We really need to find the courage to stand up for ourselves and to say, I can't do this anymore, and I won't.
Yeah. And a lot of the times that can feel like not being able to sleep at night because you're dreading the next day, can feel like stomach upset, anxiety, headaches. It could be exhaustion or feeling completely depleted when you're in community with a job or a person, even a relationship, a book, even a book that you're like, you think that you have to read it from cover to cover, but it's just not fueling your soul. It's okay to pivot, to close the book and start a new book and a new chapter. And it's scary, and sometimes it's a lot of deprogramming. And I truly feel like finding your community and giving yourself permission to shift is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself. It's honestly, at least in my experience, it's like the rebirth, right? We talk about the death. It's like that rebirth. It's a new lease on life. You glow differently. You can walk through that fear, especially when you have a community support, such as sisters or whatever that looks like for you, family, friends, um, what have you. So I love that you mentioned the death, Miriam, and I think it's important too. We navigate that within our body, right? Like what can it feel like? Because sometimes we're not always going to be able to recognize the intellectual need for the death, but we can feel it. And to put the two and two together, I think is a really powerful key for you to hold in your hand and begin to unlock this new life, right? As we move into this new year of the fire horse, it's time. Like this portal has closed and it's now opening the doors for how you want your life to look for the next, however, well, the next 6 months even. We don't need to be 6 months. It could be the next year. It could be the next week, even the next hour. How do you want your life to look, and where can you close a chapter? Where can you allow that death to be? It could be eating chocolate. That wouldn't be mine, but it could be something really simple, is what I'm saying. But yeah.
It's so beautiful, and it feels so profoundly important right now for every level, macrocosmic, microcosmic. We really are being asked to reckon with death. And I think a lot about, again, the way the goddess has been exiled, and then even kind of compounded, where the pieces of her that are starting to flow back are very filtered, and they're, the goddess as a mother has stayed in some version, even through patriarchy, the virgin goddess, these kind of one aspect of what is allowed of the feminine. And yet, the dark aspect of the goddess, even within women's work, can be so much harder to reclaim and really open to. And yet, I feel like our work together has consistently reiterated that the goddess is only powerful in her wholeness. And as we fragment ourselves as mirrors of that, our work, our lives, and only focus on the quote unquote light or life and the positive, that out of balance is really what's to be feared. That the grasping on, as Sarah brought in the very beginning, the desire for things to stay the same. Miriam shared a long time ago, and it's so struck me and stuck with me, that cancer is unlimited growth. And I feel like that's the perfect metaphor for where we're at in Western society, in late stage capitalism, in everything that we're witnessing outside of us, that there's only this desire for growth and accumulation of wealth and power, and it's one directional, and that isn't sustainable, that isn't balance, that isn't, it's sickness. And that we need, all of us need, just like the seasons go through, Earth goes through her seasons of death and rebirth every year. We go through these grandiose cosmic cycles, that in order to step into the new, in order to be constantly refreshing and revisioning and growing and evolving, that death is a huge piece in that process that can't be ignored. And when it is, it only comes out more violently, more explosively. And we're in a moment collectively of almost unfathomable violence and explosion and rending apart. And I think it's really asking us, as that microcosmic expression of all that's happening, how can we stay with? How can we be in the destruction? How can we be in the falling apart? And yet hold to our center and be tempering and balancing that without getting sucked totally in and falling apart, but also leaning towards what seeds can be planted in the wake of this destruction. How can we be attuning to that which does feed us and nourish us? How can we be contributing to the beauty and the love and the connection in the world, while also honoring the necessary phases of destruction within that? And I think that's the work, and it's not easy, and it requires us to really expand that heart field, to hold these polarities, to hold all that's falling away as we're also reaching towards that vision of what's possible. And it feels like each time on the small scale that we can lean into one of these mini deaths and recognize that they are initiatory pathways. And for me, that's what a mystery school is. It's an initiatory path. And it's not that old model of a school where this is the curriculum and it's fixed and it's one size fits all. It's engaging in a conversation with mystery, with the goddess, allowing ourselves to have that faith and trust and humility to follow where she's leading us. And she's leading us on this spiral path, on this circular unfolding that involves constantly shedding and letting go and releasing so that we can step into the new. And I think we also need to have some tenderness and some gentleness with ourselves and each others as we walk through this huge portal of destruction and regeneration. Yeah, and I think that's where these containers and sisterhood that can be real and raw and vulnerable, that mirroring to know that not only is it okay, but it's necessary, is so profoundly supportive, I think, for me, that we're not alone in this. And when we can call in, when we can look to that larger mirror of nature, of astrology, of seeing that there are these grand cycles that we are all a part of, it gives us some context. And for me, it gives me some permission to process it as I need to, and give myself the time, and these times like we've just been in, of withdrawing and questioning and recalibrating, that yet in order for us to be in our wholeness, there has to be an acceptance of the wholeness of what we're up against and what we're in service to, and giving ourselves the time to be both in the grief and the rest and the decomposition, equally, to allow that visioning and that activism to bubble forth from that place.
The other kind of destruction that I want to name that's kind of implicit in what you've been talking about, North Star, is the allowing of the destruction or collapse of the house of cards that we have built. And I'm
Mm.
specifically thinking about relationships and the things that have been left unsaid and festering under the surface. And this is something that, we're a relatively new collaboration. I think we've been working together maybe 2 years now, but it's something we've had to do again and again, is to recognize those tendencies to not say something, just to like be polite, not to cause ripples, to just let things be okay. But in not doing that, we've built a house of cards upon a facade of okayness when really we're not okay inside. And even if it's the slightest thing, like, I wish you hadn't asked me to send that email at like midnight last night when I was with my family or trying to sleep or whatever it is, like, could be the tiniest thing. But the things that get left unsaid, and I mean unsaid in a respectful, heart-centered kind of manner, not like a what did you do to me kind of like aggressive manner, but like when we allow our house of cards to crumble, allow ourselves to say the next hardest thing, to be brave and to step into open-hearted relationship and to value our own worth as much as the worth of our partner, our sister, our whoever the person is. That is another kind of death that is so necessary in order for our soul to flourish in truth.
I love that, Miriam. And the phrase that keeps coming through my mind as I hear you speak on this is no more shrinking. No
Mm.
more shrinking to make others more comfortable. No more shrinking your light to not dim someone else. When we allow ourselves to step into our full selves and say that next hardest thing, we're really honoring ourselves and our soul as well. And what we've discovered, and I think I can speak for all of us here, is that, saying the next hardest thing is super uncomfortable, but at least with us, it's received with open hearts. When we can speak from a place of open-heartedness without the intention of being abrasive or hurting someone's feelings, just truly speaking how you feel, it's received with such compassion and understanding that it truly is like this piece that allows us to blossom individually, but also as a collective too, especially in our working relationship that we have. And I think it plays into so much more than the surface of this conversation. And I think we're still kind of untangling the depths of that act. Because as I sit here and really listen to what you're both saying, as well as myself speaking and channeling things through, it's really giving me this visual image of way back to the beginning of priestessing, way back to the honoring of the goddess and the earth. And there's some mystic knowledge that it seems to be channeling through these webs of untangling old processes of you know, really condition. I would name it as conditioning to kind of be like a mouse and do what you're told and be quiet. Those expectations we were given and how to behave in public as a woman. And I think the more we speak from that heart and say the next hardest thing and allow ourselves to not shrink to make others comfortable, I think the more we can do that, the more we reclaim our power and honor that goddess within us as well. Let her shine. But, but yeah, I am so grateful that we have this space to be able to do that and that the relationship in order to honor ourselves and our heart's desires, and that we get to create that space for those in our group to give us that feedback to say the next hardest thing. It's such a teaching and it's such a blessing to be able to have that safe space, especially for I know my nervous system, but I think for all of our nervous systems. And I think to be able to radiate that into the world where maybe more and more people can do so and feel safe doing so, I think the world would just be so much more relaxing if we look at it right now. Wouldn't it be beautiful?
Yeah.
But
I'm,
yeah.
I'm going to jump in and share
Yes,
another
please.
kind of new earth business
Mhm.
tip that
Yes.
that is so contrary to what we've been taught, that old adage of don't mix business and pleasure.
Yes. Oh my
you
gosh.
know? And I think part of that is, this piece around like stuff your feelings and don't say the hardest thing. And so relationships can fall apart in that paradigm where we're supposed to like subvert our emotions and be professional and like almost divorce ourselves from our emotions, which are part of our superpower. Like
Mhm.
sensitives know that our emotions are actually really important information vibration. So one of the things that has turned my life from mundane to magical has been saying yes to working with the people who I love.
Mhm.
And I've been doing it more. Like first it was just you guys, right? Well, also in the School of Hebrew Shamanism, working with a dear friend. But then a friend of mine who's like a brilliant marketer, I was like, oh my God, like what if we were to work together? And there's always just a little bit of trepidation of what's going to happen to this friendship. But what really happens is it deepens because that need to communicate, even the little things that like just to clear the space and make sure we're on the same page amps up. So there's personal growth happening. But then the pleasure, the delight of having your day uh, filled with interactions and meetings and conversations with people you love, it's like how the world gets more and more magical the more that you bring pleasure into different parts of your life. So that's the other one that I'll just offer up for this new year.
I
I
love
love
that. That feels so crucial. And yeah, it feels like this is a huge edge, especially as women. And it feels relevant to this larger threshold that we've been discussing of what is the evolution of the human and moving into Homo luminous or our expanded consciousness. And it feels like for me, as you both were speaking, like the word that kept coming through was integrity.
that.
And that's something that I feel like I'm really striving to find that center of the personal truth. And all of kind of the examples you were sharing are the ways that we've been taught that we need to minimize or subvert that personal truth and from the wholeness of us, not just intellectually, but emotionally, capacity, spiritually, energetically, in order to fit into someone else's expectations, framework, system. We could go on and on. And it's scary and it's hard to really be in the truth of what we need and then how we can show up once those needs and boundaries are met. And it seems like I that question of kind of personal responsibility versus shared responsibility is one that seems to be coming up in a lot of areas of my life right now. And I think there's kind of this idea that we're shifting collectively from the need for external authority structures to really claiming our individual authority. And when we do that, as we're able to do that in greater and greater capacity, it really does shift the dynamics of how we're showing up in containers and collaborations and circles. Because it goes from, and I recognize those places where I'm still stuck, of needing to be in that people pleasing or the codependent kind of snares of, if I say what I actually need, if I set this boundary, it's going to hurt someone else. But also then they're going to reject me, that if I need to put on this mask, be perform in this role for job security in a very literal way. Like I can't tell my boss my truth. I can't, in friendships, in whatever, that so much of our personal validation, I think, at least for me, is wrapped up in how all those other interfaces are accepting me or validating me. And it's really radical to kind of reverse that dynamic. And I don't think it's subtle and it's nuanced, because part of really being in that truth is to enable us to show up in service. And it's not about just stroking the ego on kind of a small level, but about really being in integrity with what is ours to offer and what is required for us to be offering that in a good and sustainable way. And I think when we can come back, and that's what I love the practices that we work with, in addition to kind of the theology that we're uncovering, is that center point of the goddess lives in me, this grail that both connects to the infinite, also channels through this particular vessel in a particular way. And there's a personal responsibility to keep that channel clear, to nourish myself, to get the rest I need, to be tending to my family and my daily demands. And when I'm from that place of security and centeredness and groundedness, then I can show up from overflow with this is truly mine to offer. And then I can also receive what is needed in a supportive way, not in like our identity dependent upon it. And that feels like it's not an overnight shift, and it feels like this is a much larger evolutionary threshold that we're on, to really claiming our personal power and then finding with that clarity where that weaves in the unique thread that we have that feeds into this larger tapestry. And when we put it backwards, which it feels like it's had been, or we try and contort ourselves to fit what we think we should or are supposed to be in order to get that security, that validation, that love, that whatever it is, then it actually hurts the whole field because it's disingenuous. And all that we have to offer, I think that's the core teaching for me of the Grail, is this incredibly unique, precious, one in infinity expression of the divine that is not separate from, but does have its unique integrity in this manifestation. And if we each align to that and we're in the truth of that, then I think we do all fit together like puzzle pieces, because we're not taking on things that aren't ours, that aren't supposed to be ours. We're truly in that flow of divine grace, divine will, directing our expression in this lifetime for the good of everyone.
I also want to name, as you're talking about divine service, that in case any of the viewers are hearing that, those little moans in the
Oh
background,
no!
North Star is tending to her beautiful beloved dog who is under the weather right now. So I want to honor that, one of our pieces, principles, values that we have as we come together is family first, and that we are all humans, that we're not going to pretend to be more than, superhuman or above the relationships that really matter to us. So I honor North Star in, being there for Patches as she's also showing up for this conversation. So
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. And I'm sorry, I just put noise removal on.
fine.
It's okay. You're human. We're human. And you, like Miriam said, family comes first. And that includes our pets that are very much part of all of our families. We all have beloved pets. So it's beautiful that you get to tend and also that we get to be with you today as well. But I don't know. I feel like that was a fantastic conversation. I love that we're in this era of reemergence and what that looks like for us and all of us within this community. I'm excited to see what this looks like in 6 months, to record a podcast reflecting on the last 6 months and really be able to honor where we've come from on all planes, on all levels, and really get excited for where we're headed as individuals, as the Goddess Grail, and as a collective and a community. So thank you for listening in today. I know North Star, you have some really exciting news for those of us who are wanting to participate in the Goddess Grail and in our community. So take it away.
Hey, yeah, after all that to say that we're leaning into the mystery, there are a few breadcrumbs that we're following that we know thus far. And one of the central one is this, you're here for it. This podcast really feels central to all of our hearts and to that place where we can lean into the vulnerable realness of how Goddess is working us, how we're evolving and growing, and make that conversation really transparent. And so we're all committing to doing this much more regularly, and we're hoping to podcast twice a month. So if you're not already subscribed, that would really help us out. We'd appreciate the like and follow wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be putting them on YouTube as well as Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all the usual suspects. Um, And so that for like the real time, what's unfolding is one of the best ways to stay involved. And then, as we shared, that always core to this project has been that community building. And so we've started, and we're going to continue this process of once a month having these free and open goddess lounges, which are held on Zoom. And it's basically a community council for sisters to come together, speak what's on their heart, be able to be held in loving witness. Sometimes we offer some reflection, sometimes we drop into some calming nervous system practices together, but just really a free and open space for us to tend to that relational field and get to know each other and deepen in our relationships as we deepen into our relationship with the goddess herself. So those are held on the second Wednesday of every month at noon. And if you go onto our website, there's a sign up link and you'll get the Zoom link sent directly to you. So that's, I guess, the third piece of news is after trying and failing and learning of some different mediums for us to host our work. We found that our website sponsor actually provides a really great centralized location where we can have kind of all of our course material as well as links to a lot of free resources and practices and all the upcoming events and announcements. You can sign up through there. So our kind of home base for everything, and that'll then connect you into the podcast and the YouTube and all the other stuff, is thegoddessgrail.com. And you can also reach out to us there. We would love to hear if you listen to this and have bubblings or longings or what you'd like to see. Please don't ever hesitate. We're really excited to build this mystery school and build this community associated with it. So there's some free courses, there's some nice bite-size individual things. You can follow your intuition to what would really serve you. And we're also updating and curating all of our YouTube content so that hopefully that'll be a really nice library of resources to support you on your own journey.
Yeah.
So that's it for now, I think, unless anyone has
Yes,
anything else I
beautiful.
missed.
No, I think that's everything. Yes, we have new content always dropping on our YouTube channel, so make sure that you do check out and share with anyone that you feel like it may resonate with. And we appreciate you and your presence and your support. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And until next time.
So much love. Bye.
Bye.